Welcome to Beyond Sunday with Pastor Nick Williams. South Shore Community Church exists to help all people find and follow Jesus. Join us weekly as we talk through current sermons, theology, parenting issues, and how to have a gospel-centered marriage. We are praying that today's message helps you grow closer to Jesus. Now, here's your host, Pastor Nick.
Welcome to Beyond Sunday, where we explore how the truths of Scripture impact our everyday lives. I'm Pastor Nick, and today we're diving into a topic that resonates with anyone who's faced trials, finding real-world joy, as Jesus describes in John chapter 16. Have you ever found yourself asking, where has all the joy gone? Especially after tough times? Truth is, you're not alone. Today, we explore how Jesus not only addresses this question, but provides a profound answer that can change how you and I view every challenge we face. Imagine the scene for a moment. Jesus is sharing his final moments with his disciples, preparing them for the hardest days of their lives, his crucifixion. And amidst the somber setting, he talks about joy. Can you imagine that? He's telling them that he's not going to be around for a while. He's talking about all the hardships they're going to endure. And then he begins to talk about joy. And this isn't just any joy. It's a joy that transcends circumstances, a joy that is complete, a joy that he's feeling even though he's facing the cross. So let's take a moment and unpack these life-changing truths. Let's start by understanding God's process. Jesus doesn't shy away from telling his disciples about the tough times ahead, but he also promises a hopeful outcome. In John chapter 16, verses 16 through 18, Jesus confuses the disciples with talk of leaving and then seeing them again. It's a conversation filled with mystery, but promises clarity and revelation. It's interesting because as he says this and they're confused, the first thing they do is begin to ask each other. They talk to each other. What do you think he means? What do you think he means? I'm confused. Are you confused? Instead of stopping and asking Jesus himself. I remember when our community faced a big flood, it was confusing and tough and grappling with loss and uncertainty, and this happened recently, yet it was during this time that many of us found a deeper understanding of community and God's unchanging presence. So when you face confusing times, take a moment to pause and seek God. Ask him not just for the outcomes you want, but for understanding. I think we miss that prayer so often. Our prayers are usually about the outcomes. God, I want this to happen. I need this to happen. God, please do this. But we never stop and say, God, help me understand. Help me understand why the trial is coming. Help me understand the direction that you're taking me. And when that's happening, when you begin to pray those prayers, keep a journal of these times. You'll often find clarity as you look back and see how God has woven a tapestry of grace through your trials. I think it's one of the biggest things we miss in this Christian walk. And we see it all throughout Scripture. But it's setting those moments of reminder. It's journaling so we can step back and see where God did something incredible in our lives. In the midst of the trial, we miss it every time. But it's almost always 2020 that we can look back and say, yep, I remember when God did that. I didn't see it at the time, but man, it was incredible. Joy often requires a journey through grief, where you and I let go of what was to embrace what will be. John 16:28 promises that grief will turn into joy. It's a powerful reminder that our pain is not pointless. It doesn't say that your grief will be replaced with joy. It's not he's taking something away and giving something to. He's actually taking that grief, that hard situation, those tough times, and he's turning those things into joy. Consider a gardener pruning roses. The cuts seem harsh, the loss significant, yet this very act ensures the health and beauty of the blooms to come. For you, think about what in your life might need pruning. Perhaps attitudes or relationships that drain more than they enrich. Making these tough cuts can be the path to new joy. Start with one small intentional change this week. Now next, let's consider the resurrection transformation, a fundamental basis for our joy. In John 16:22, Jesus talks about a joy that no one will take away, rooted in the resurrection story, his and potentially ours. I met someone recently who lost everything in a fire. The rebuilding process was tough, but he shared how through the loss, he found a new perspective on what was truly valuable in his life. Faith, family, a renewed sense of purpose, not all the things that he lost, even though he mourned those things. He grieved, if you will, for those things. Jesus took that situation and brought him joy. So for you, look for a situation where you feel there's been a death, maybe a dream, a plan, a relationship, and ask God to show you how it can be a doorway to a new life. So what new opportunities can this ending create? I used to love those books as a child that you got to pick the story. I don't know if you remember those. I don't even know if they exist today, but you would read to the end of a chapter and then it would say, what do you want to happen next? And it would give you two options. And based on what option you chose, determined what chapter you turn to next. You didn't just go to the next chapter. And I think that's a great analogy for our life. God can take those things that seem like they're a dead end or the end of the book, and he can create a new ending, a new opportunity for you. Our joy is deeply connected to our prayer life. Jesus emphasizes the power of asking in his name. John 16:23-24 highlights that asking in Jesus' name isn't just about prayer requests. It's about aligning with God's character and desire. True prayer involves openness, honesty, and a willingness to let God reshape our desires. So for you, enhance your prayer practice by setting aside specific times for deep, undistracted communication with God. Now, I did use the term prayer practice because the more you pray, the better you're going to become at it. The more comfortable you'll become with those conversations with God. And so set aside time, specific time, for deep, undistracted communication with God. Try starting your day with 5 minutes of silent contemplation, offering your day up to God and asking him to fill it with his presence and his purpose. Now, as we close today's discussion on finding real-world joy, remember that this isn't a joy that's dependent on external circumstances, but rather on a deep internal truth that Jesus shares with us. This week, I encourage you to reflect on these teachings. Lean into understanding God's process, embracing the necessary pruning, seek resurrection, transformation, and deepen your prayer life. Thank you for joining me today. May your week be filled with the kind of joy that Jesus promises, one that no circumstance can diminish. Until next time, keep walking in faith and finding joy in your journey with Christ.
Thank you for tuning in to Beyond Sunday. We hope the conversations and insights shared here have brought you encouragement and have deepened your journey of faith. If today's episode has inspired you, we invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an opportunity to grow closer to Jesus alongside us. Don't forget to share this podcast with friends and family who might be blessed by it too. Until next time, thanks for joining us, and may God bless you abundantly.